Welcome. All right, got a good group here today. We'll start in just a minute, just letting some other people get into the room. Great, good to see some familiar friends. If people want to put their video on, you're very welcome to. I'm Brian Smiga. I'm a co-founding partner at Alpha Partners. We're a growth fund. We work with many early stage funds like HL and Impact America, who we're going to hear from today, to help them fund their follow-ons in Series B, C, and D rounds, and we share the economics with them. We've done this in 18 companies, about 21 times, and it's working out very well because it makes emerging managers more profitable. It allows them to stay on boards, maintain their full investment and information rights in great companies. And we're going to be hearing from two of those great companies today. So this is part of the Alpha Essential Tech webinar series. We do these monthly. Every third month, it's more aimed at limited partners, investment themes, and growth equity. But then 2 times a month, it's featuring a different tech sector in the essential economy. Today, social impact, which includes health education and fintech in this case. But we'll do them on health, robotics, and every tech theme that's of interest in the essential economy. So some Zoom instructions. Dan Stolar, a senior associate, is our Zoom technical co-host. You'll hear from him today. Daniel Weinstein is our director of IR and marketing, so you may hear from him today. We'll be following up with videos of today's event in case you found it interesting and want to refer back to it, or you want to share it with your colleagues. There'll be a discrete video for each VC and each company that presented today. There's a total of 4. And you'll get a thank you from us with those videos early next week. We really encourage audience participation, and here's some ways that you guys can participate. Number 1, there's the chat down below, and you can ask questions at any time. You can direct them to the group, and one of us will try to answer your question in chat, if not orally. If we don't get to one of your chat questions, we'll ensure that your question gets answered post the webinar. You can also chat with each other because many of you know each other, so we encourage that. So please use the chat questions for chat function for your questions and to chat with each other. Lastly, we're going to have breakout rooms after our 4 speakers. You'll be able to choose which company and which theme you want to focus on, fintech or health education. And so you can go into a breakout room and ask more intimate questions and have discussions with the VC and the presenting company in that breakout room. That'll last about 15 minutes. And then we'll all come back together to see what we learned in the breakout rooms and then bid you good day, hopefully before the top of the hour. Okay, so those are the ground rules. Thank you so much. I'd like to welcome our panel. I'm just going to start with one. Stephanie, it's really, really good to have you here today. We really appreciate your participation in this webinar. Stephanie Thomas from Impact America, please lead us off with a great panel.
All right, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. So I'm going to share my screen quickly just to give you guys a glimpse of who we are at Impact America. So yes, I'm Stephanie Thomas from Impact America. We are a venture capital fund that is really looking to identify companies that are high growth, that are tech-based, but that are also ripe for taking advantage of massive opportunities within their respective markets. But we also believe that, if these companies can get it right, if they can succeed at scale, there's also an ability for them to drive huge benefit economically to stakeholders that otherwise would be forgotten about. And so, we could argue that the things that we invest in, right, from a technology standpoint, are all sort of essential technologies for the stakeholders that we care about and for how we want them to impact the world. But when you think about, at the core of it, what is essential tech, you also have to think about, who is it essential for? And I think back to when we first, found out about Helen and her great work at, in building CareAcademy, what we were really thinking about and grappling with as a team was, what is essential tech for workers, actually? And it's really important, when you think about it, if these workers are low income, they're women, they're persons of color, they are collectively a group of underrepresented, overlooked, populations and stakeholders, right? And if you know anything about the care sector and home care, 60% of the, direct caregiver workforce actually is low income women of color. And so these are the stakeholders that we really care about. And we know that the system is not built for them, right? We know that a lot of products and services that are coming out of the Valley are not designed with them in mind. But the founders that, we back, like Helen, they really see these populations and see these stakeholders that are forgotten about as inherently valuable. Right. And they also see a path through business where they can actually realize that value and that massive opportunity if they build the right products and services, that take them in mind. And then what that looks like on a sustained level over the longer term, where you have this shared value that comes into play that is spread across all stakeholders, not just shareholders. And so when you think about CareAcademy in particular, and I'm going to introduce Helen soon, you got to think about, what it means to link caregivers to, a broader set of stakeholders across home care agencies, across the patients that they serve, as well as, overall, the overall sort of home care sector itself. And, for us, we think that, essential solutions for workers can imply that, these are sort of essential for the world and everything in between, right? When you have, a $6.5 billion pain point for these agencies around recruitment and retention of these direct care workers, when they're thinking about how do we serve a ballooning population of, elderly patients, right? In the midst of a supply deficit of workers, that means what's hanging in the balance is 60 million lives of elderly people, right, who need care. And so if you can solve for that, that means starting with an issue such as compliance and building out software for it, which is what Helen has done, could ultimately prevent a public healthcare crisis, right? When you're able to understand how things that benefit and tools that benefit the workers play out in these other areas. And so, again, I'm very happy to introduce Helen and the work that she's doing. We really believe that, again, with her particular technology, if you're able to empower the worker, that means happier employers with more profitable home care agencies that they're running. That means healthier patients and loved ones of the families that are, carrying the cost that's even beyond monetary cost of, the loved ones who are sick and who are aging potentially. And then also a more superior, robust home care and home healthcare system. And so that's what we believe is the way to meet outsized returns. That's where we think, entrepreneurs of the future are going to win. And as VCs who back those entrepreneurs are going to be able to realize these returns, but also realize and drive impact that can sustain. So, so with that, I'd love to introduce Helen, CEO and founder of CareAcademy.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was fantastic. While we appreciate you all at IAF as a great stakeholder. So I'm also going to share my screen. Awesome. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much. Thank you so much for just even the opportunity to present today, the work that we're doing that's critical at CareAcademy. Before the pandemic, we saw this as critical work. And so, thinking about the theme of essential technology, we offer that the technology that we provide in order to enable the workforce that is essential is absolutely necessary. And so the tagline that I have for today, and I come from a background of being a former teacher, former direct care worker, is positing that we're elevating and defining home care and direct care workers, the people who do this part of healthcare, as great healthcare overall. Before the pandemic, just to give you all some background, we saw that there was a shift that was moving into the home. The largest deals done generally within the broader funding landscape as of this year all happen to be in digital health and healthcare, because we've seen such a huge exacerbation of what's happening in the home care space. And so CareAcademy has always operated from the belief that direct care workers at the end of the day were really holding up the value of healthcare in the home. And we needed to catch up as a country, as an industry, and provide them the toolkit in order to really elevate healthcare and drive healthcare outcomes. That's what we are fundamentally doing at CareAcademy. And so just to also provide some groundwork here in terms of pre-pandemic, home care has always been a fast-growing industry. It is even more fast-growing right now, but before the pandemic, we saw that there was overall $173 billion of anticipated spending in home care as America ages and ages rapidly. It also happens to be a sad fact that we know that the folks who are most likely prone to falling to this pandemic also happen to be within the age group that the age group of older adults here in the U.S. And as Stephanie mentioned, this is $6.5 billion cost in terms of recruitment. 10.7 million total caregiver jobs by 2026. And so we as a country face a pretty yawning gap of being able to find the talent in order to do the work. And that is even more critical and more needed as a result of the pandemic. And so our focus has always been, how do we provide technology that supports people? Because at the end of the day, when we talk about the future of work, when we talk about healthcare, it is a people-powered industry that results in outcomes for the greater benefit and the greater health of communities. And so that is a perspective we've always taken in terms of driving value as a company. We work on a B2B basis, as Stephanie mentioned, with home care agencies in order to provide caregivers with the education and the tools that they need to work directly in homes. And so just to give you a sense of what our technology platform looks like, we offer an online mobile accessible solution because the majority of caregivers have access to their mobile phone, but they weren't being provided scaled ways of getting access to the tools and resources they needed for their patients and clients. So we provide online professional development that's really bite-sized, because at the end of the day, for the adult learner, especially when we're talking about what has traditionally been called low skills work, we believe is actually very high skills and high needed, it's all about accessibility. And so our technology posits that we need to be accessible on behalf of the learner. And because of that, we will see greater utilization and, as Stephanie mentioned, happier caregivers and happier direct care workers also results in happier employers. This is also undergirded by a back-end platform that employers can utilize to see the effectiveness of their total employees as well. And so March 11th happened, and the WHO declared that coronavirus is a pandemic. And for us at CareAcademy, that meant leaning into truth and a foregone conclusion of what we knew about healthcare, that this direct care worker was already essential. As direct care workers, they were already going into homes to work with patients who had flu, who had different comorbidities around diabetes and other healthcare needs. But we already knew at CareAcademy that the direct care worker at the end of the day, especially when we're talking about a pandemic and disease that had people really convalescing in the home, meant that they were going to be critical. And so our thought process as a company and as a team was, how do we orient around the total value and need, both for the direct care worker who's essential and the employer of those direct care workers. And so within a week, we pulled back as a leadership team and said, what does this pandemic look like playing out in our industry, and really on a macro basis? And actually what we drew up is what you're looking at right now. As a leadership team, Sequoia sent the memo, a whole bunch of things are happening. And I've always been a foremost believer in leaning into a good crisis and coming out of that even stronger. So we thought from a very, not from a deficit mindset, but from a very growth-oriented mindset, how do we come out of this making our stakeholders, both employers and caregivers, even stronger? So we leaned back and we knew that there were common themes that were emerging. Millions of Americans were going to be unemployed in the services sector. We knew many home care employers were going to be reeling from the demand of having home care workers in the homes of their patients and clients, potentially to treat coronavirus. And so as a company, we said, what are the ways in which we can position around these emergencies, these multiple sort of outlines of this pandemic that will emerge in the coming months? This is a living document within CareAcademy. We're always refining this. As you can see, there have been more than 3.3 million people unemployed within the US. The jobless claims today actually has risen in terms of this stalled recovery. And so to the point of never wasting a good crisis, the highlights that really emerged for us, and I can't even state it enough, so tremendously proud of the work of our team, the leadership within our company, of being able to react and proactively act on behalf of the industry. March 18th, we released, within 7 days of the declaration of coronavirus being declared a pandemic, a free version to everyone and anyone who wanted to access it, a toolkit essentially of how to treat this virus and work with patients and clients who had the virus. By March 20th, we pulled back and said, how do we support the employers? We started an ongoing weekly webinar series that was just a resource in a time of crisis of how do we project a voice out and the way forward in the midst of this pandemic. By April 30th, as a result of all of that, because we are ultimately a company that believes in both mission and margin alignment, we had one of our best quarters ever, because what was fast emerging as a theme is the reliance, of course, of online education as it relates to healthcare. By June 11th, we proudly announced that we had raised an oversubscribed Series A because we leaned into the theme that we were doing critical work for the people who are the most critical. And we also announced at the same time that we would be the company that reskilled 1 million new workers into the workforce that already faced a very large shortage. And by July 2020, we released a COVID certification. So we expanded that initial class and created a first of its kind certification. And to date, we work with over 800 home care agencies and businesses, both in the US and Canada, including Sodexo and a number of other corporate-based home care companies. And just some of the highlights too, in terms of the usage of the COVID class and certification. We tracked this, we measured this, we grew this over time, and we are invested always, first and foremost, in never wasting this very good crisis and looking for ways to holistically be the company that builds value for direct care workers and employers. To that end, one of the things I'm also proud to announce, and we have a set of announcements going on across the way and through all of our social media platforms around this too. We are in the business of working with employers to skill and upskill their direct care workers. As an extension of that, we also know that we are the enabler of bringing new people into this industry. And so to that end, we announced that we would do a first of its kind online event at the end of the month that would take folks, one of our partners within the airline industry, I'm not going to announce it quite now, but the airline industry and a number of other service related companies have announced that they are doing massive layoffs. And so CareAcademy is utilizing this moment to bridge build, to introduce service-related workers into home care and ultimately into healthcare as a bridge. So I'm tremendously proud of the fact that we are the company that's building a very critical part of the healthcare ecosystem alongside IAF, and that we can do this at scale, and an industry that has not seen a level of bringing people ready at scale especially now in the moment that it's needed. So I'm really excited to talk about our work and happy to do so in the breakout as well.
Wow. Thank you so much, Helen. It's Brian again. I'm going to introduce our next speaker, but extraordinary speed and response to the opportunity this year. Really exciting. And just as a reminder for latecomers, there'll be a breakout room where you can spend time with Helen and Stephanie if you want to learn more about CareAcademy. And there'll be a breakout room for our other two speakers. You'll be able to choose which room you like at the end of the next two talks. So 2 more lightning talks coming up. It's my great pleasure to introduce a friend and a fellow VC in New York, Oliver Libby of HL Ventures. Oliver, please join us and take over. Welcome.
All right. Thanks so much. Really glad to be able to be here and share a little bit more about HL Ventures. Brian and the whole Alpha team, really appreciate your hospitality, and great to meet everyone who's on the line and to see some old friends as well. I think to pick up on a theme that Helen shared, crises, obviously no one wants to see them, and everyone wants to avoid tragedy, but there comes a time at which the thesis for investing in companies that are world positive and do well and good at the same time really plays out, and crises are just such a time. So, I think it's been interesting to see what's happened across our impact portfolio, and in sharing with our colleagues who are having the same experience, that the companies that we are working with are by and large seeing an opportunity to grow very quickly during this time. And certainly CNote and Kat Berman, who we're going to meet in just a few minutes, is another great example of that. I just want to give a quick overview of HL to build some context here. HL Ventures is a very unusual type of venture firm. And I even use the term venture firm advisedly, because while we have funds and we do make investments, we are at the top level a holding company that is better understood as a company building entity. We are perhaps one of the earliest of the venture studio model, and I believe the first one, or among the first, to have been focused on impact and diversity at the same time. We like to say at the top level that we're investing at the nexus of growth, impact, and diversity. This is anything but concessionary. So there's a long-standing narrative about impact investing that it will accept lower returns and under market performance in order to do good. There's certainly some styles of impact investing that are like that, but ours is not. And so we've built a 12-year track record of investing at that nexus of growth, impact, and diversity. And we're here today to say that, it works. So a few things about the firm. Who we are. I think one of the most important things to draw out of this slide, and we're not going to go word by word here, is the concept of daily active engagement. Perhaps the beating heart of HL Ventures is the idea that, far from running a due diligence process, getting to know a company for a few weeks or a couple of months, and then watching what happens over the intervening years, the idea for creating impact and growth at the same time is to be involved day to day. And so we've built a relatively large team. Our core team of staff and venture partners is actually close to 30 people that are involved every day with our portfolio companies. So as Kat may share with you, with the CNote team, we're interacting via phone, text, email many times a week to push forward the ball for the things that will help the company grow. And it's not about a scope of services or a particular set of things that we do. It's really trying to be there for the company in all ways, leveraging our network as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Probably the central assumption of this whole thing is this slide. I think of it as a National Geographic map. If you look at that very beautiful hockey stick curve that everyone talks about in innovation, it only takes a few clicks of the aperture inward to see just how jagged the curve is for startups. And the idea for an active venture firm like ours is to be there during the peaks and troughs and to help out, and thereby make it much less likely that the company will run into unexpected trouble. That's not to say that it's easy, even with us along the way, but the idea is to be there every step of the way to help our founders avoid obvious errors that even the most talented leaders will make along the way, and to help also build acceleration and move things along faster. The key components of the HL's Venture Studio model include daily active engagement, leveraging a powerful ecosystem around us, and providing access to capital, both our own and that of our co-investors. Daily active engagement, as I mentioned, is this concept of being in there every day and being kind of a black box of all answers for our portfolio companies if we can be. A powerful ecosystem refers to not only that close to 30-person core team, but also our advisors, our trusted partner network, and our broader ecosystem that literally numbers into the hundreds of individuals, and a contact list of into the tens of thousands that we can leverage for our portfolio companies. And again, we make investments in almost all of our portfolio companies, both off our balance sheet and through our various funds. And you know, that's also joined by a very robust and active group of co-investors. And so, you know, it's about blending all the different forms of capital that help a company grow. So that's, you know, financial capital, but also human and expertise and network and credibility, visibility, all the aspects that will help a founder grow the company successfully. So, you know, I'll leave you just with a few thoughts here. You know, we are very keen on the idea that impact and diversity make good business. So if you look at our portfolio, actually about 70% of our companies are founded by diverse founding teams, including underrepresented minorities in tech. And in our growth fund, actually, it's 100% of the companies. We also believe that it's important that every company be world positive. So 100% of the 30+ companies we work with track to the UN Sustainable Development Goals and also to our own internal impact methodologies. But we are trying to grow companies that have strong financial returns as well. And so again, it all comes back to the interplay between growth, impact, and diversity. And I think the other thing that I'll share with you, and then we can move on to Kat's presentation, is the fact that our company, because it's a holding company with a nested group of company building assets, if you will, is structured in order to permit that focus on growth, impact, and diversity. So it's about also reinventing a new approach to venture and to making sure that interests can indeed be aligned to achieve the goals we're looking for. I'm very, very pleased to introduce both a dear friend and a partner in Kat Berman of CNote. We met Kat actually simultaneously through a number of introductions from people we trust very much. And we were delighted to get the chance to understand CNote and, in fact, bring CNote into our venture studio and make investments in the company as well. As you'll find from Kat's presentation, this is a company that embodies the things that we talked about. Kat and her co-founder, Yulia, of course, are female founders in fintech, no less, and we're extremely proud to be supportive of female founders that represent over half of our portfolio, but also doing something that is capable of scaling, but also of helping many, many people, particularly in the context of the COVID-19 crisis. So I don't want to steal any more thunder. Kat, let me turn it over to you and see the screen here. I'm looking forward to hearing your presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Oliver. I can't speak highly enough about Oliver and the HL team. They are just tremendous partners and investors. So let me go ahead and share my screen and get started. Fabulous. Well, thank you again for hosting me today. Excited to share a little bit about what we're working on at CNote and the CNote journey. So we are a fintech platform delivering the future of socially responsible fixed income. And let me share with you why. So some of you on the call may have seen, may have heard, may have experienced this yourself, but socially responsible or impact investing has certainly been on the rise in the last few years in particular. You can imagine amidst what's happening in COVID, we're seeing tremendous growth in the socially responsible investment space. You know, it is a $12 trillion industry in the United States alone. But one of the things I stumbled upon in my earlier journey was the absence of innovation in fintech. Prior to in fintech for fixed income. So prior to CNote, I was managing director at Charles Schwab. And so during my time at Schwab, I was able to see the rise, not just in interest in impact investing, but in asset flow. And that's where I thought, well, that's great. It's wonderful to see, but why is the majority of the innovation around public equities? And yet, as many of you know, the fixed income market in the US is over 40 trillion. And so we knew that there was a massive market opportunity around fixed income, and yet it was largely untapped. And so we were excited at CNote to really think about what we can do in this nascent space. The other aha moment I had during my time at Schwab, amidst my peers, whether it was Citi or Morgan Stanley, the majority of the investors that came to us seeking to align their portfolio with their values wanted to do that throughout their portfolio, not just in public equities. And this quote from the Chief Investment Officer really shines a light on that, that most of the people interested in incorporating socially responsible investing want to do it throughout their portfolio. But there is a dearth of available ESG fixed income products. It's truly the hole in the market that we're seeing from institution to institution, and that's what we're excited to deliver at CNote. So enter CNote. We are a technology platform delivering the future of fixed income, which is, to Oliver's point, competitive returns. We truly believe investors do want to hit their targets and reach their financial objectives while aligning with their values in a deeply personal way. So we do that through a SaaS platform that has been able to dramatically reduce the time to write socially responsible fixed income and deliver both market rate returns and customizable social impact investments. These are just a few of the things that our technology does, everything from reducing the time to underwrite to delivering premium returns, allowing investors to customize what they believe is impact, addressing one of the largest issues in socially responsible fixed income, which is how do you get to scale? And then, of course, impact reporting, or really delivering on measurable impact. And so what we've been able to do is both create a dynamic back end and front end. Back end in the ability to really unlock inaccessible asset classes so we can all get those competitive and values aligned fixed income products, but also on the front end, do it in a deeply personal way. So we're actually choosing what we invest in. Instead of just a blanket green bond, you're able to customize around what impact means to you, whether that's really investing in dynamic investors in specific communities, whether that's investing in homelessness, women's empowerment, climate change, or specific community, whether you want to invest in the state of California or in Brooklyn, all of these are achievable through our data-driven platform. So we're a B2B company. We actually don't sell directly to consumer. Our target is very much focused on institutional, so driving dollars from large banks, large foundations, large wealth platforms. And I will also share COVID has presented a variety of new opportunities, as our latest partner are actually large corporations. Oop. Looks like my share went. And so, as I shared, we see this as a massive market opportunity. Fixed income alone being 40 trillion, we ended up using one specific asset class that we're incredibly bullish around, called CDFIs, or Community Development Financial Institutions. I like to stress that there is nothing new about CDFIs. They're a 30-year-old asset class that have delivered strong capital preservation returns and performance for years, and are already being used by every major bank. Most people on this call have likely never heard of CDFIs, as have most Americans. And so we get excited to use our technology to unlock really high-performing, high-impactful asset classes like CDFIs. Starting with that, and then that's just the really beginning of our journey as we continue to look at other high-impact, high-performing fixed income asset classes to deliver to our institutional partners. And this slide is particularly important for me because our North Star as a business, the why behind CNote, is really to close the wealth gap in the United States. Both my co-founder and I really came together with a passion for social justice and a passion for finance. And so we see this as an opportunity to not just open up and modernize the field of fixed income, but deliver tremendous impact and value erstwhile to our communities and to our investors. As you can see, just a few of the highlights of CNote's impact. Every dollar that moves through CNote's platform goes to communities across the country, specifically low-income communities and underserved communities. You can see that 35 cents of every CNote investment dollar has funded a woman-led business. That's 9x the national average. And we're proud to date that in 2020 alone, over 90% of our dollars from the Promise account, our cash solution, have been investing in communities of color. I want to pause on this to also say, and I'm happy to talk more about this in the breakout, but really what COVID has meant in terms of for the communities we serve and for CNote as a business. I think prior to COVID, I think there was a potential understanding that there was some inequality happening in the United States. I think prior to COVID, there was perhaps some conversations talking about, right, the injustices that were happening specifically because of racism. But I think we are now all sitting in a very different narrative right now, one that we have believed in passionately prior to this pandemic, and that we are excited to be able to have more and more conversations around what can each of us be doing to really address the wealth gap in this country, the inequalities in income and wealth, the inequities as it relates to economic justice. And I'm happy to share that with our technology, there is a lot we can do, and there's a lot we can do at scale. So we do see this as an opportunity to really continue our hyper growth as we drive more investments into underserved communities and involve more parties, including the large institutions and corporations that are now stepping into this fold that are looking to do the same. And that is CNote in a nutshell. Really, it's about using technology to deliver the future of fixed income, competitive returns, technology-driven, and delivering measurable positive impact. I look forward to speaking with those who have questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine and Oliver. Great presentation and so relevant. At Alpha, we love companies like this that have raised a Series A, and we think are on their way to Series B and C rounds with great tailwinds. So great execution. We have only about 10 minutes or 12 minutes for the breakout rooms. So Dan Stoller is going to guide you now, and you can teleport to one of two breakout rooms, one featuring CareAcademy and Impact America, and the other CNote and HL Ventures. We'll spend about 10 minutes there. If you come off mic, please make your introductions brief, but we look forward to questions from all of you in the audience. So please join the discussion in the breakout rooms, and we'll see you back here at about 5 of. Bye.